Hello fellow builders and welcome back to the bench. I'm the mediocre modeler and I'm glad you're here. Well, we've got a quick one for you today. Okay, we're problem solving today. What's the problem? I'm glad you asked. But before we get to that, if you would not mind, going ahead and clicking the notification bell and subscribing to the channel so you can share in the problem solving on a regular basis. Okay, so here's my problem. When you go through all the effort to make your model look beautiful, when you get it completed, what's the next step? You want to display it, of course. And so proper display is kind of important. And sometimes I'm looking around, I want to rearrange my stuff. Actually, every time I complete a model, I almost end up rearranging 2 or 3 different spots because I'm like, oh, you know what? This needs to go with this, and this would look better over here. And it was in the process of doing that, I noticed this problem. So the issue is obvious. With the Galactica and the Raptor being relatively the same size on their post, then you end up with one washing out the other, no matter which orientation you put it. The Galactica was there first, and it's in the back because it takes up less room. So normally what I would do is I would just take my trusty ruler, decide how tall I need to make it, and just make a crude riser out of a 2x4, just big enough for the base. Cut it, in this case I think it's like 3 inches tall, paint it black, and be done with it. Then I had an idea. Remember this guy? This was the base for the Battlestar Galactica Viper joystick that I tried to emboss or whatever. And that's where I'm talking about never let anything go to waste. I'm thinking now, instead of just building a regular old riser out of 2x4, let's see what we can come up with in Fusion 360. And using some of the pieces I knew I was going to use. I wasn't sure what I would use it for, I had no idea I'd be using it this quickly. But what I want to do is come up with a riser that will lift the Galactica model just barely above the Raptor and make it look interesting. This also gives me the opportunity to go into Fusion 360 and do some practicing, learning how to manipulate objects and make something a little bit more interesting than a basic shape. Every time I do it, I get a little bit better. I try something a little bit different, and those skills over time build up, just like building models. So let's get into Fusion 360 real quick and see what we can come up with. Okay, now that the design's done, we popped it over to our Creality CR10S to get it printed. For me, it's 7 hours, but for you, it's just a matter of saying the magic words. Mekalekahai, Mekahaini, ho! And there you have it. Okay, so let me walk you through a few of the things. Let me walk you some of the finer features of this beautiful thing. Okay, so this is the base of the Pegasus, and it's the same as the base of the Galactica, so I use this as my reference when I was trying to draw this out. Now, the one thing I did notice when I was drawing, because I was trying to figure out how wide it needed to be, I did a trace to see how wide I want it to be, and basically, I see it, but if you look at that, if you take the circle away, basically, you have a Viper. It's kind of Viper-ish, you know. There's the front end and the wings, down there, down right there. Anywho, that's what I saw. But, all right. When I did, so I used the hole, the mounting hole for the post that comes with the model as my hole size through here, because what I wanted to do is run through the full length and have some structure. I'll probably glue it in here and into there. A few problems I had. This has no hole in it, which is why I ran the hole all the way through. So I went to get myself a 3/16 drill bit, and what's nice about measuring with using your calipers, you can become really precise, because you cannot beat that. The tolerance is just right there. I also have this hole here because, okay, the base sits like that, boom, Galactica sits on top, right? So what I still wanted to be able to showcase that, so what I will do is drill that all the way through and run a peg into that so this can sit just like that on there. And then the Galactica will sit on top. The other thing was trying to make sure this would fit into this. And I gotta tell you, just being able to, just that simple. Once you get some adhesive in there to hold it all down, that's gonna be beautiful. And I'm just gonna tell you, it's nice to, having a 3D printer is nice. And, okay, let's back this up. Building and completing a model has a joy in and of itself, right? And once you start scratch building, you're not building other people's models, which there's nothing wrong with that. You're doing your own creation. It's the same with 3D printing. Once you have a 3D printer, you can print other people's stuff all day long. But once you have that power of going in and creating things on your own, it's a whole nother level of joy. So you get these little bits of happiness all the way through the build, because you made that fit in that, and on and on and on. If you've got a 3D printer, Fusion 360 is free for you to learn on. I'm just saying, if you've got the time, there is a level that you really could enjoy. The creative part of it is just part and parcel with everything else we're doing. So, I also ended up back to the build. The rod that comes with the model is going to be way too short, so I also went out and got 3/16 rod, and it should go right in there. Yep. So all I really need to do now is drill this into the center so I can stake it, and then figure out, I'm going to use contact adhesive, I know that, to put those two together. Just figure out what I want the surface to look like. I think I might just go on ahead and just make it black, just keep it simple. But that's probably going to require, I want to do something other than Bondo. I think I'm going to try. So normally I would, at this point, get out my Bondo it up and sand it and everything. But I went through all the trouble of having these nice angles. This actually looks kind of more like a trophy. And then I was thinking, man, if I had a resin printer, I could have done that in a nice, cool, smoky resin or clear or something, and combine them into something really amazing. But we're going to deal with what we got. I don't want to lose the angles that I have on here, so I'm going to try again the XTC 3D. The problem I had with this last time, I think I probably just laid it on a little bit too thick. So we're going to get into the garage and get a coat on here, try and get a thin coat on here, and probably have to sand it down. I think I just was a little bit heavy-handed. But that's the next step in the process, so let's get to that. In hindsight, I probably should have recorded the whole process of doing the XTC 3D. But what are you going to do? Let me show you a couple of things here first. Okay, this is the material that, this is what you're going to end up with. As you can see, at the bottom where it settled is where it was got really thick and you can't see through it, but you can see as thin as it can get. It's a really good tough material if you do it right. This is what I mixed it in. I only did 30 cc's total, and this was more than enough to get the model done. As you can see, once it cures, it totally ruins the brush, so don't even think you're going to be able to save this brush. This is trash. But I bought a box of these brushes for little to nothing. And so this is how the model came out. Now this side right here is just a thin brush coat of the XTC 3D, and then I sprayed a coat of black on there. No sanding, no nothing, and it came out pretty well. I'm very happy with that. You can see where it could be sanded in some of those areas where it's just a little bit too thick, you know. So the back I did sand. I just did a light sanding with a 300 grit. It's kind of hard to see. And then on top of that, I sprayed in the filler primer on there. So basically what you're doing is you're going from this type of surface, and you can go to that surface. Just pretty much smooth, especially if you sand it. If you wanted to put on another coat of the XTC, then you could really make this as wonderful as you want to, but we don't want to distract away from where we're going. And what this is supposed to accent is the Galactica model. I'm gonna just drill this real quick. Sometimes it's just that simple. realistically, all we have to do is really figure out how tall we want this, cut it, grind it off, and we're good to go. Well, yeah, at least on the rod part. Still want to get some paint on this now that it's done. Now, I took the opportunity while I pulled this down to use the panel line accent color of black. I didn't have a steady enough hand or a small enough brush to actually put the black inside the Battlestar Galactica lettering, so I used this, which comes with his own brush. Itty bitty brush. And I got as much of that material off as I could, and then just, again, whipped it in there, and it looks just good enough to where, is it pristine neat? No. But from a distance, it fills in the letters to where you can see where you're going. Just like the Viper stand, I still have some of this foam rubber, and I don't want it to scratch my shelf because the shelf this is on is actually made of glass. So I use contact adhesive to glue the foam rubber onto the bottom of this, and let it sit for a day, well, overnight, and now I can just trim it right off. Oop, look at that. Whoop. I don't want to get too close. Come on. There you go. Let me say this. Yesterday, I did this contact adhesive. So here we are a day later, and, you know, basically you put the adhesive on two different sides, you let it kind of fog over, you stick them together. Here, 24 hours later, and that's not coming apart. That, you want something to stick together, use contact adhesive. So, and that's what we're going to do also when it comes to gluing this part down to this part. I was trying to decide whether to use silicone or something, and I could probably just use the regular old model glue because it is plastic, but I just feel like if I use the contact adhesive, the super glue being so thin, I don't have thick super glue, it being so thin, I would be afraid that the two mating surfaces, with all their irregularity, it would be too thin and they just really wouldn't hold together. Although, between the post in the middle and then the glue holding the post in, and then maybe glue inside the center of that, and then what little bit of glue around the bottom of that, the recession there, that should be enough to hold everything in place, because the model doesn't really weigh that much. But better to be safe than sorry. We already have our rod cut, so now basically that goes in there like that. This guy goes on there like that. Glue the two together, Galactica goes on top. The one more thing I have to do is cut a very small peg to put that right there. Let's get that done. Oh, let's turn you on. Already zeroed. Oh, that can't be right. Real 18 millimeters. Okay. When in doubt, do it again. $18 millimeters. Okay. Trust the calipers. They haven't let you down so far. It's hot. Eat baby vice grips. I love my little baby vice grips. And it's still hot. Oh, well, that's just sweet. That's just sweet. So what we're going to do there, we're just going to go ahead and glue you in. Why? Because we can. Also, this gives me a place to hold it because I've been having trouble when I was painting it, needing a place to hold it so I can move it around, and that's just perfect. Isn't it beautiful? Alright, so now all I have to do is clean up some of this mess a little bit here. Now all I really have to do is I can put the Galactica old stand on there and glue it in place when I'm ready. in the trash. Yep, I can just set it on there, get it lined up the way I want it, drop my little glue in there, and actually I can fill it up. I could fill it up with the glue and kind of sand it down to make it level and paint over it. But let's get this all put together. That held pretty well with just the glue. Sometimes I'm just overthinking it. So, all right. Just so we know it's straight, we're gonna do this. That's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna put the glue on here like this. It's all the way around, right in the hole. Make sure it's centered up. And secure it. Yeah. See, look. All right. Yes, I still want to use the contact adhesive, so I'm gonna go get that done. That shouldn't take that long. Put that on that, and we're like 5 minutes from being done. So let's put this puppy to bed. Okay. Take our clamps off. Oop, see? It's still a little bit wet. Well, you know what? We're going to cheat. We're going to just put a little dab of glue in the back. Let it seep down in there. Just a little bit. Huh. All right, so what that's going to do for me is going to keep it from moving side to side or up and down while the contact adhesive cures. I love these clamps, but sometimes they're a little bit too strong. I can see where when I clamped it down there, it left an impression in the paint. The paint might not have been completely dry cured back there. But that is okay. That is okay. On the back. Put you on there. Line you up. You in place. Boop, 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 boop. All right. Okay. I'm gonna give that time to cure. And Galactica, she goes like this. Let's put this in place and see what we get. Well, if we were going for something more interesting than what came in the kit, we definitely hit the mark, I believe, with this. It looks like the nose is lifting a little bit, so I might need to adjust the top of that pin, the rod, so it tips forward, because it didn't do that on the original base. But this isn't why we built this base. So let's do a comparison to the main reason we actually built this. So on your left you have the old display setup, and on the right you have the new. Although the picture angles are a little bit different, you can clearly see this is an improvement over what we had before. Now, you can't see the Galactica logo on the display stand, and it is covered up a little bit, but there's not always going to be in this configuration. At some point, we're going to expand and go laterally and put this into a different place, and then the stand will be able to shine with all its glory. And with that, fellow builders, we're going to mark this one complete. You know, the side benefit of this whole build, where it started was the rearranging of models, and every time you complete one, you have to find space to put it on your shelf. Well, the beauty of this one is it's not taking up any more space than it was already being taken up by the existing stand. So it's a win-win. Now, it's time for you to get your win-win. You got to go build something. School's back in session, and I know there's a lot of stuff going on trying to get the kids off to school and school projects and da-da-da-da-da, but you still need to carve out that little bit of time to go take a breath and get something built. It's good for the heart, good for the mind. And it could be good for the Mediocre Modeler channel, so if you send it to me so I can take a picture of it and tell everyone about it, I'll send it out and the whole world can see your progress. But at the end of the day, we're all here to have a good time and enjoy each other. So, until next time, have fun, be safe, and go build something. Pew 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 pew.